lays across the forest, man. Aye, man. Trees play an important role to fight climate change. Yes, man. So, the danger of an axe is in our forest. Let us protect our forest. Yeah, man. When I was a little boy, my grandfather slapped me here. I had to cut the trees around without any reason. With my axe in my hand, I had to change that landscape in a short period of time. Oh, you see. Little did I know that trees bring about the rains that give us water. Oh God, the shadow of a night, you want to see it in the forest. In the forest. The shadow of a night, you want to see it in the forest. In the forest. The shadow of a night, you want to see it in the forest. In the forest. The shadow of a night, if you want to see it in the forest.
Last year, a syntropic food forest revolution swept over Curaçao after the Bamplanta Awa course, organized by me for the Ministry of Health, Environment and Nature. In this course, led by Tiago Jimenez and Murila de Limo, participated about 42 people. The farm setup during the course changed the narrative about farming in a drought striken island, for thanks to the syntropic design the need for irrigation dropped from twice a day to once in the 20 days, a real revolution in agriculture. Syntropic agroforestry has been developed by Ernst Gotch in Brazil. It's, as the name suggests, the contrary to the desertification and entropy caused by modern agriculture. A holistic system where tree planting goes hand in hand with the growing of an abundant succession of crops. An agricultural system in which the gap between ecology and economy has finally been bridged. Talking economy. A few months after the course, I got approached by Robin Matthews of Trees for Peace with a very interesting offer. Robin offered sponsoring with donations in cryptocurrencies from international companies for reforestation projects in Curaçao. Reforestation, so much needed to restore water cycles and even attract more rain. When told about syntropic agroforestry, Robin immediately understood how food production together with reforestation was a paradigm shift unheard of before.
We are here with Roland van Reenen, our food forest expert. So Roland, can you tell us a bit about what we're planning today?
We're planning or planting?
Planning and planting.
We're planning to create a food forest here, a huge one, but it will be a combination of fruits and vegetables. So we're setting up lines of fruit trees, and there will be supporting trees and biomass trees in between also, preferably local trees.
So with me here I have Daniel, who is basically the owner of the first syntropic farm on Curaçao. So Daniel, could you tell us a little bit about syntropic agroforestry on Curaçao?
Okay, syntropic agroforestry is a way that we want to introduce to show there a new regenerative way. The key word is regenerative. Using trees that do good and well here on the island.
Awesome, man. And
That's
I heard
what we're doing.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
And I heard that your farm only has to be watered once every 12 days.
Yeah, we started every 5 days no water. Then that evolved in 12 days no water. And now we're doing a pilot test of 20 days no water. And this is unheard of.
That is unheard of on Curaçao.
20 days no water. And after that, we're striving to go even for more. That's the test.
Yeah, because you don't go around watering a rainforest either, right?
Exactly. That's the point we want to try and see.
I am here with Clarvin, who is the land owner.
Yes,
So Clarvin, how are you feeling?
very good, very good. I'm impressed of how everything is going. So I feel very good. Planta esse mena. Me de palo na grande, para de bonchi, yambo,
To make a long story short, Robin kept his promise and found sponsors for the farm of Clarvin Saintje, a young, very promising farmer. A script was made which included also a few international projects, among which a project in Kenya.
So this food forest has been made possible by our different sponsors and partners. Liberland, which is a sovereign nation between Serbia and Croatia, is one of our sponsors, as well as our main sponsor, Summit Blockchain, who invests in sustainable projects like Pack Global, which is a cryptocurrency, as well as Litecoin, that is also a cryptocurrency. Global Boost, one of our main partners that we work with on a daily basis. Give Nation is a charitable organization that helps and educates children. And we also have the Flame of Peace, which is a charitable organization by the House of Habsburg, that is the royal family of Austria. And they're active in over 80 different countries. And we also have Bitcoin Cash by Roger Ver, as well as Gagstein, which is a media company for the cryptocurrency.
Hello, bom dia. Meu nome é Daniel Paris e lo que me também mostra vos nang agora aqui, televidente nang tá me também mostra vos nang sistema que tá revolucionando na Curaçao. Agora que tem hopi e mais ainda tá interessado em sistema aqui. Ou de como ainda não tá interessado, simplesmente para sombrar sistema que tá regenerar lugar que a terra estava completamente sunu de tempo hopi record. Aqui nós vamos provar com selva. Por exemplo, quase não está na Curaçao, não está aqui, mas não está na Curaçao. Então, esse sistema aqui, quanto anos você quer esse sistema aqui tem? Esse sistema aqui não tem nem ano viu. Nem ano viu. Nós começamos completamente bare soil, que é suela, maneira assim aqui, que é completamente sunu. De menos que ano, ela cresce vira o que está assim aqui. Como nós podemos lograr isso aqui? Nós só logramos isso aqui door de seguir certo princípio de natureza mesmo. Simplesmente seguindo, imitando o processo natural que nós observamos do ecossistema mais abundante no mundo. Pensa no ecossistema na maneira Amazônia, selva que está hopi será. Isso aqui nós está simplesmente imitar. De como nós está crescendo esse sistema aqui na Curaçao. Nós estamos trazendo esse sistema aqui para demonstrar que nós por regenerar nós terra que está hopi danhar, para sombra nós uso de portanto uso de agricultura que está saca toda a vitamina na fonte terra, ou simplesmente hopi monde a ordem rosa, hopi palo a ordem de cap de nossa história. Que tapone que nos isla está seca hopi mais lie e também que ta causa que ao ser não cai maneira antes mais ao que esse sistema aqui nós que prova e demonstrar que nós por regenerar e começar a fazer isso aqui. Imaginamos se nós começar a implementar esse sistema aqui massalmente na Curaçao. Em 10 anos todo lugar que está seco sunu regenerar de sistema que produz comida, riba é processo natural, riba é dinamismo de natureza mesmo, lo que syntropic agroforestry está fazendo.
Last year, October, I traveled to Kenya as a way of thanking me for my contribution in the food forest revolution that swept over Curaçao, but also to investigate about the role of crypto community inclusive currencies in Kenya, more specific that of Sarafu. This trip was sponsored by PEC Global and Luc Weber of Curadao. This was the start of a unique exchange project between Curaçao and Kenya.
We love you very much.
In Kenya, I did a few workshops and set up a few syntropic agroforestry farms for local communities. The most successful was that of a community in Miyani, near Mombasa, created with Sarafu currencies. A year later, it is the only green farm in the dry season. But more important, the design I made became a blueprint for all farmer groups that work with Sarafu. About 50 syntropic farms are set up according to that design all across Kenya, all based upon Sarafu currencies. It is here where my quest begins. Sarafu restores trade between members of a community when there is no money. And because Curaçao locates also a lot of people without sufficient money, we might learn a lot of the experiences in Kenya. Now check the system. Here they grow better already, you see, and there's also an intercropping of maize and beans. How much here?
Matching materials.
Yeah. You see the difference? They will grow anyhow. Oh.
Around here.
Yeah, that's also possible. As a kind of fencing system. Yeah, as a hedge. Yeah. And you can also use it as a fence, yeah? You got a very good idea to keep the animals out of those things.
Did you bring those? No.
And she said she's got another brownie without thorns as well.
Yeah. Those you can.
That's great. Yeah.
Hi.
I like it. This is very good, eh? Very good, the mulch here. Very good. Yeah, very good. You see, it's a little bit wet, eh? Yeah. Good mulch, yeah.
It's interesting because there's this idea, and I think it was first. I'll try to remember the guy. Stigmitz, Paul Stigmitz, I think is his name, and he studies mycorrhizal fungi and all these fungal networks. And the idea is that these fungal networks, they sort of like are living lungs and living tissue that connect resources and living systems together, right? They fill these gaps, kind of like your intercostal tissues and things like this, right? They connect nutrient flows. And so the idea is that, well, the internet itself and all these kind of networks like blockchain are about connecting information flows and resource flows together. So they mimic in a way, they're very much biomimicry in a sense. And so we're always doing some level of biomimicry as humans. And when we create centralized structures, that's the equivalent of doing like monocultures and stuff like this. And it creates power imbalances and huge problems. You know, like if you look at all of our, you know, economic imbalances and poverty and stuff like that, it's the concentration of wealth. It's the, you know, like the concentration of blood or something. It's like cancerous growth. But if you look at positive, you know, growth that's really equal, you're looking at networks that allow flows to happen all over them. And so, you know, even blockchain to some degree can become like that. It can become negative as well if it becomes very centralized, right? And so enabling people and credit systems to interact with each other and to be a free form space, it's a whole nother sort of dimension where, you know, people can be free and design their own value systems and share them with each other and connect them to each other. And so even like you imagine like these systems around syntropic agroforestry, right? So here you've got a syntropic agroforestry plot, and you have a currency system that is enabling the resources of labor and maintenance and all sorts of things to connect humans to it, right? And then you also have those humans and that economy connecting to others as well. And so the currency is something that can connect us together to the land and to other projects and other resources. So if we can just picture that and imagine, you know, the flow of nutrients as currency, right? And all we really need to do in that case is provide these conduits and allow those resources to flow. And that's really all currency is the flow of trust in a way. So it's a giant trust network.
So Sarafu is a community currency that are used by the marginalized communities in a case where the Kenyan shillings is scarce. So it is a tool of exchange whereby users that are registered in Sarafu use it to exchange their goods and also services.
No bear soil, 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 no bear soil. Tunatangaza Sarafu Kenya na Agroforestry. Tunatangaza afya Kenya. Sasa twasonga mbele. Afya Kenya imarike. Matibabu Kenya imarike. Jamii bora sisi lengo letu. Ndio tuwaze 2030. Roland van Reenen. Oh, tuyainue maisha yetu sisi wa Kenya. Sasa twasonga mbele. Afya Kenya imarike. Matibabu Kenya imarike. Jamii bora sisi lengo letu. Ndio tuanze 2030. Kwa hivyo Wakenya twasemaje? Sarafu isonge mbele. Wakenya twasemaje? Sarafu isonge mbele. Kwa hivyo Wakenya twasemaje? Sarafu isonge mbele. Wakenya twasemaje? Sarafu isonge mbele.
Alex Miel bwana.
Kwa hivyo Ronaldo ni vipi lengo? Ronaldo ni vipi lengo? Kwa hivyo Ronaldo ni vipi lengo? Ilradi ni vipi lengo? Kwa hivyo Emma ni vipi lengo? Emonyango ni vipi lengo? Kwa hivyo Emma ni vipi lengo? Emonyango ni vipi lengo? Kwa hivyo Janeti ni vipi lengo? Emonyango ni vipi lengo? Kwa hivyo Janeti ni vipi lengo? Janeti ni vipi lengo? Kwa hivyo Iliradi ni vipi lengo? Analiva ni vipi lengo? Yelelelelele tuishi chakula tuishi kwa afya, tuishi na dawa wa Kenya, yelelelele tuishi kwa chakula, tuishi kwa afya, tuishi na dawa wa Kenya, yelelelele tuishi kwa chakula, tuishi kwa afya, tuishi na dawa wa Kenya, yelelelele tuishi kwa chakula, tuishi kwa afya, tuishi na dawa wa Kenya, yelelelele tuishi kwa chakula, tuishi kwa afya, tuishi na dawa wa Kenya,
Yeah, so that's a song about Sarafu and agroforestry. So basically, Sarafu is currency in Kiswahili. Currency, Sarafu. That's one word. So currency is Sarafu in Swahili. But in this case, Sarafu is a network. Yeah, it's a network which is a basic income program that users in different community use to exchange their goods and services. So it's a tool of exchange. Okay? So initially we used to have barter trade. We used to have barter trade where people would exchange their goods and services. Somebody would come with a goat and maybe get a sack of maize. How many of us heard of that? Barter trade, yeah. So Sarafu is like a digital barter trade. The better thing with Sarafu is that we can equate what we buy or what we sell, because it's like e-voucher. So when you register to Sarafu, you are receiving these vouchers in your phone. So it's not hard money, it's not paper money. So it's like e-voucher. So when businesses and communities charitably accept Sarafu tokens in their businesses, a network is created. So when we go to a new community and that community accepts to use Sarafu, they create a network. Therefore, there's a circulation of Sarafu in their community. And this way, the vulnerable households are able to get support, since they are able to trade and receive whatever products that they need from their networks.
Money is not the value of commodities we exchange things for, it's the value we exchange things by. It's an interesting distinction. That was John Law in 1708 said that. And the point being that, like, we often confuse money with commodities, right? So commodity money back in the day would have been like salt or gold itself as a commodity we exchange things by, but that shifted over time into what were just abstract ledgers, like credit systems, right? IOUs, and those were actually representative of things versus them being an actual commodity. And so I think we have a lot of mixed understandings of what money is and the whole history of it, because we came from a lot of commodity spacing into what is now credit space, which is really based on trust, but we don't really know how and who to trust anymore, right? Because we came from this idea that money was a thing, like a commodity, like spices and shells or whatever they were, and we've moved into this space of it not really being backed by anything except trust that you're going to get stuff in the future for it, or trust that you're going to have your taxes paid for it. And unfortunately, the whole banking structure right now is issuing credit that we're all supposed to trust, but it's actually not backed by anything, right? So we have a whole massive global system where banks are issuing credit on our behalf. They're issuing national currencies, actually. We think that it's, you know, based on deposits and things, but actually it's really not. Very unregulated. And so that's the situation we're in right now, is coming up with ways in which people can trust money again. And to me, that comes from communities and from people saying, here's what's real, here's us coming together and coming up with a medium of exchange that we can trust because we're backing it ourselves. So decentralizing and localizing, relocalizing money to be based on real local farms and produce and people.
You want a loan, you go to the bank and you tell them, give me 20,000 shillings, and they say either yes or no, isn't it? But when you put that your own money into the bank account, and you go home to sleep, do you know what happens to that money? No. When you go to the bank and give your salary, 20,000 is here, you put your money in like this, and I'm the banker, I say thank you very much, I give you a paper, isn't it? Andy comes to me and tells me, I want a loan of 20,000, I give it to him. But what if Willis also comes and asks me for that 20,000 again, as a bank? What am I doing? I'm basically making money and giving it to him, because there's no way that the bank has all the money that it's also loaning out, you see, and nobody knows. Willis does not know that that's actually your money that is being given, isn't it? So you see, with the regular banking system, Yani, it's very tricky, because they play with their money, with our money, and then also they go and loan out. They play with the US dollar, they make profit, and then they don't give you the profit, they charge you actually to hold your money, isn't it? Don't you have fees unakatwa every month or every year, isn't it? So with cryptocurrency, it's a little bit different. It's more open, let's say, because like you see how these verifiers, right? So people can see its verifiability, because different people are all doing it and working on it. But then it means each person also has to pay that attention. So we call that now the mining. You have to sit with your computer. It's a bit complicated to explain. But the difference between Sarafu and other cryptocurrency is speculation. Sarafu does not use speculation, because we're not trying to go up and down, you know? People speculate with maize, isn't it? Sometimes they say, I'll buy this one, or even with cows. I'll buy this cow when it's thin, make it fat, and then sell it, right? I'll buy this maize, keep it, and then when there's a drought, I sell it for maybe 50 shillings more for a kilo, isn't it? So people usually do that in cryptocurrency. Today the Bitcoin is 36,000, tomorrow Bitcoin is 37,000, then that 1,000 I keep it as profit. But with us, it is constant the whole time. There is no up or down speculation, there's no profit, and it's completely open source. So everybody can see. All of our donors who are bringing in the money can see. We have 50,000 people here. All their transactions are open. Every single shilling is accounted for. So that's how I would say the difference is.
I need my flour, I need your rice. So
you can compare it like a barter.
yeah, it's barter trade.
Old-fashioned barter trade.
Barter trade. Yeah, it's a digital barter trade, because we are exchanging our goods and our services. Yeah.
There's this idea that there's this artificial scarcity, right? That the entire money system, even though it's being just created by big banks, it's being created not for productive loans. It's not being created. It's not, most small businesses don't even have access to it. Right, who gets to actually get banking credit is very, very few people. Yeah. And so that's part of the problem, is that we have this artificial scarcity around credit, while as actually credit's about trust. And you and I can have trust with each other, and therefore we can have credit. There's no reason we can't create credit. If credit is based on trust, we just need to learn how to trust each other. Right, that's it. So we don't have to deal with these scarce banking currencies. We can actually create our own trust systems.
Okay. So basically, for Sarafu, when you're doing that code, that transaction is happening and it's being recorded on a public system somewhere. But our technology is also on that public system somewhere, like a computer, a big computer somewhere. And all that information is being stored in that place. So even with all this making of the Sarafu, if you want to go and make your own governor county 48 coin for your area, you can go to this same computer, take that, because it's all open source. Okay, so anyone, even if you want to go to Italy, and also other people, if you want to go and look at other kinds of things like that, it's all open source. So it's completely free, anybody can go, you just have to be very conversant with it and understand it completely. So my brother here yesterday told me, please bring Sarafu to Tanzania. And you know what I told him? I told him, it's open source. If there is a company in Tanzania that wants to be like Sarafu, go and just see our technology and take it. And that's what blockchain is. It's this thing where you cannot, once you put that data there, that Andy has sent to, did you send any Sarafu to anybody? Somebody sent to me.
Tiongo sent to me.
Tiongo sent to him. There is no way that that transaction can be faked, forged, or like you see, there's a lot of M-Pesa scams. There's no such thing as a scam on this thing because it is completely open and they need verification from different people to put it there in like a permanent record. Which is why, if you can remember, during the election period last year, everybody was saying, why don't we make a completely open system that cannot be unverifiable, unimmutable? Like once somebody has voted, it's shown there and it cannot be cut out. Because let's say if I come and I tell you, you've told all of us here that Thiongo sent you, right? So tomorrow you can't say that Thiongo didn't send you, right? Why? Because there's all these people verifying and backing up that claim. That's how blockchain technology is. But I just want to also mention that that's how you should also understand our motives. Everything is open. If somebody wants to come and copy us, we tell you, please go ahead. It's all open source. So everything we use is basically open source, means free. Like you see with Microsoft, I can't come today and say I want to make a document thing which is like Microsoft because it's not open source. So I'd have to make my own. But for this, it's completely open source. So somebody can come na aige na atengeneze nyingine.
So at the coast, we had groups that Emma and others had trained before. So they had accumulated lots of Sarafu. So now we found them, it's good to introduce a project for them so that they can use the Sarafu. Others had 10,000, 20,000. So now they look for a community shamba, 1 acre. And then with their Sarafu, they can start with getting labor, because you can pay someone labor. Also to get materials such as manure, ashes, mulches, all that. And also seeds. So in the syntropic agroforestry, it's a good marriage between farming and the currency, because it's at the grassroots level, and then you don't need anything from outside. So even
something from me. Maybe I sell mboga, and you want to buy mboga from me. My mboga goes for 50 shillings, but you only have 30 shillings. So instead of you coming to me and I give you debt, of which I'm not sure if you'll pay back, since not many people usually go with the day. So you can come to me, we agree. You give me the 30 Kenya shillings in cash that you have, and then the remaining 20, you add Sarafu. And then when I get that Sarafu, I'm not supposed to be staying with it. Even me, I need to spend on other people. Maybe you can come, treat my hair, I pay you some Kenya shillings, and Sarafu.
Can you explain about that Sarafu? How do I get the Sarafu?
So, when you register Sarafu, you get 50 Sarafu instantly, and then we'll call you from the office. I get your details, that is name, where you're located, which business you're doing. It can be business or a service which you can offer, and then I'll add you another 50. So on your side, that you can increase your Sarafu, there are some ways that you can increase Sarafu. Number one being you accepting in your business, of course it will increase. The second one is by the way you are using Sarafu among your network. We normally give bonuses, weekly bonuses, and then the third way you can do referral. When you register someone and then you do the first trade with that person, we give you 50 bonus, 50 Sarafu.
50 Sarafu is equivalent to how much Kenyan shilling?
50 Kenyan shilling. One Sarafu is 1 Kenyan shilling. But you can't change Sarafu into Kenyan shilling. Yes. You just have to spend it like when it's in Sarafu.
At least now I have an idea of what Sarafu is.
Any question maybe?
No, I think.
And then another thing is that we normally tell business people to put a limit on how much they can spend in their Sarafu in their business, since they need to restock. So, for example, if I am selling groceries and I know my normal expenditure is like 100 in a day, I can accept that 100 Sarafu. When I get that 100 Sarafu, I'll go and spend on other people that are registered. Yes. It's not supposed to be stagnant in my account.
Yes, at least
So that even me, I can satisfy my needs, because I also have needs.
Yes.
Barter trade. Now Sarafu is just like barter trade. It's just like taking a face mask for a what? For even a trouser. But now we value it into Kenya shillings. If your mask is 20 bob, You can't take your mask for 20 shillings and I take your shirt worth 100 shillings. So the 20 shillings will be like the money I have. That is the Kenya money I have. What of the remaining 80 shillings? That is Sarafu. I'm going to put it in a phone and then I give it to you. So Sarafu is now working like the Kenya money because it has a value.
It's a digital money.
Yeah?
It's a digital currency.
Yes, exactly. Now it's not the barter trade again. It is like money. We are working on money on Sarafu.
Is it like M-Pesa?
Yes, it works like M-Pesa. But M-Pesa, you are going to send money you've kept, you send to a relative or friend. So you feel like sending money to someone. But in Sarafu, you had traded with your money. You can now send it like M-Pesa. If you are sending money to your parents, Sarafu to assist, it will work like M-Pesa because you are sending money to somebody, you see. But if you are working with Sarafu as money, you are going to trade with Sarafu. You trade, you do table banking, you keep it in a phone, and then after that, you give it to members who don't have money or are in need of money, and they'll return it after some time. Sarafu rotates. It is.
M-Pesa is a digital payment system developed in Kenya already in 2007, long before systems like that occurred in the rest of the world. It started as using call credit as money. People started sending call credits to friends but also to shops and businesses as a way of payment. It evolved eventually in a system widely used all over Kenya without interference of banks. And nearly everything can be purchased in seconds with a few simple actions on your mobile phone. Very safe system making cash obsolete.
There's a lot really distinct about these concepts. I think that, mostly they've been around for centuries, and going way back to cruciform tablets and ancient Egyptian ledgers was the idea that communities could just keep track of reciprocity and trusted systems and create their own ledgers and trust systems. And there is a huge long history of these all over the world. So I first found out about them by reading Bernard Leotar's work, The Future of Money. And he talked about, Japanese kind of ledger systems and all these different forms of kind of what would be called usually community currency, local currencies, or mutual credit systems. There's a whole kind of variety of these that have been going on for decades and decades, and even some issued by municipalities, some of the best ones, some great examples. And even banks coming up with their own different credit systems that weren't national currency and things. So to me, it was just look at the world of that existed at the time. I was really interested in it and say, are there places on the planet where they're actually really lacking a medium of exchange? Because most of these examples that I mentioned are in places today where they don't have chronic poverty. It's not quite to the level as it is in a place like this in Kenya, right? And so bringing those examples out here, we found that they really flourished, and as long as they were owned by the community, because there was such a gap, right? People have goods and services to trade each other. They can trade. What they're missing is a piece of paper, and that's ridiculous, and it should be ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's a community currency. It's e-voucher. When you're registered, you operate it using your phone. Like, it's not a physical or a paper money. It's in your phone. It's e-voucher. So all the registered users are able to transact using their phones to get their goods and services. So a new user, when you're registered, you receive 50 Sarafu automatically.
And 50 is same as?
So the value of Sarafu is, one Sarafu is equivalent to 1 Kenyan shillings, yeah? So whenever a new user is registered, you receive 50 Sarafu instantly. And registration is free. There's no credit that is deducted from your airtime, and there's no amount that you pay. So as long as a user has a phone and a line, you can register to Sarafu. So when you're registered, you receive 50 Sarafu automatically.
Yeah.
And then we make calls from our end, the phone support team. We make calls to these users to complete their registrations. By completing, we mean we get to fill their bio by filling up their names, their official names, their locations, where they stay, and also the kind of businesses that they do or the jobs that they do. After completing their registrations, then we can add them another 50 Sarafu. So it means that any new user receives a total of 100 Sarafu, which is equivalent to 100 Kenyan shilling. We use Sarafu to exchange goods and services. So let me say I'm a Mama Mboga, the local grocery woman selling things like vegetables, onions, tomatoes. So business people receive Sarafus in their businesses. So when you receive Sarafu in your business, you increase you increase the amount of Sarafu in your account. But we also advise the business people to have a limit. So for example, this is how Sarafu works. For example, someone comes to my business, he or she is registered, and they need a product from me. So let's say the product is like, the product is worth like 50 shillings, 50 Kenyan shillings.
Yeah.
So if we are both using Sarafu, we will agree on the amount of Sarafu that I will receive from this person.
Yeah.
It can be like 10 Sarafu, and then the 40 balance, he or she will pay in Kenyan shillings. So we have used both the Sarafu and the Kenyan shillings. So it means that if I had 100, I now have 110 Sarafus, yeah? So the more you receive in your business, you will receive more Sarafu. You will add more Sarafus into your account. So that is one. Another way of receiving more Sarafus is when, let's say I'm already a registered member and I want to register more people into my network. So that's referring people. When you refer anyone into Sarafu system, you receive 50% bonus. That's per person. Like even if you had 5 people registered, you referred 5 people, you receive 50 Sarafu per person. Yeah, so we advise these users to be the first people to like use Sarafu or trade with the people that they register, because that way we are able to tell in the system that so and so referred so and so, because they've traded, like that's the first trade. So this person is able to receive 50 Sarafu. So another way of increasing Sarafu also, when users use Sarafu in their communities to support their community and also to support themselves to get basic needs, they receive weekly bonuses depending on their usage for that week. So we can't tell that amount because it depends on how much you used or how many people you traded with that week. Yeah, so that's how people receive more Sarafus.
We just came out and said, well, initially we weren't digital or anything. We just actually went out and said, hey, can we help you guys print some vouchers for your businesses and let those just circulate around and create a sort of guarantee system so they would endorse each other. We'd have local elders that would provide mediation and just create your own little circulating currency system. And often we would use the term like a producer credit, right? You're producing something, you're doing something. Well, you can create a credit against that. Just like a bus has bus tickets, right? Well, if you're producing tomatoes, why can't you have a voucher against your tomatoes? And if you have a voucher, why can't that circulate as currency? Right? Really, really simple concepts, you know? And so like today, mostly we just take the same ideas. We work with chamas, which are like groups of women usually. They're gonna build like a collective farm, and they'll create the currency to pay themselves and laborers to work on that farm. Those guys can now use it for haircuts and school fees, and everyone can come back knowing that they can buy the food from that, like syntropic agroforestry plot, for instance, right? So it's a simple, really simple, almost stupidly simple concept. Like we can create vouchers for stuff that we trust within the community and let that circulate as money, especially when there's no national currency. You know?
Malo Maya mama ohera be. Maya mama ohera be. Samono jedala. Maya mama ohera be. Samono jedala. Maya mama ohera be.
It only works with those who have registered or...
Yes, you have to register. How
Okay.
can I work with you when you are not registered? I don't know you. How can I work with you? But that is when we are trading. But Sarafu you have, strictly you have to register. For me to get Sarafu, I will be a registered member to allow me trade with you. But if you are not registered, it means that if I buy your goods or services in Sarafu, you will pay me back in money. But still Sarafu won't go through because you are not registered. I have to help it with a registered member. You understand?
Okay, but okay now.
You want to ask a
Yes,
question?
ask a question. You are free because you are also a member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a service giver,
Yeah.
how do I benefit from Sarafu?
That is good. You are a service giver.
Yeah.
You give me a service.
Yeah.
I have a good which I'm going to give you, or I also have a service
Yeah.
which I'll render you. Sarafu is like money. Money is the buying and selling of trade goods and services in order to make a profit. But Sarafu, you sell your goods and services in order to satisfy your needs.
Yeah.
It might be primary needs, secondary needs, but it depends on what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You agree on terms of payment.
So in terms of interest rates, like that's one of the ways that, you know, the banks sort of create an incentive for people to have to take out more and more loans, right? So if I'm creating a money supply and I say, okay, I'm going to charge, 10% interest on that loan, it basically means that in order to pay back that principal plus the interest, we've got to get more money. Well, where do we get that more money? Well, probably from another bank, right? And so you create this exponential increase to the amount of credit, right? All of it is due back to some banks. So, right, if you look at all the money out there in the world, well, the interest payments on that loan will have to create the next trillion X dollars, right? So it's really an exponential kind of a pyramid scheme. And so the idea is to say, well, why should money have interest on it? In fact, a lot of economists say it should be the opposite. Money, just like anything, it should actually rot. It should decay.
Yeah.
Right? It shouldn't last forever. It's not like a infinite bar of gold. What's valuable is the earth and the land and our, community assets like cooperatives and schools and all these things. Like that's valuable stuff. Money, for money to stay valuable forever, it's almost like a vampire kind of thing. That's a vampire kind of concept, right? Like the money can fall asleep and it's still going to be valuable in 1,000 years. No, money is supposed to be based on trust, and trust is based on humans interacting with each other, right? It doesn't make sense to have, a reputation system or even scores like this that last forever and ever. No, it needs to be renewed, right? Just like the soil, just like all natural systems, right? So if we think about money as circulatory systems, well, they should have cycles and they should even decay. And so even with the currencies that we develop in communities, we tend to do what's called a demurrage, which is even like it's basically a holding tax. So the money decays over time, the more you're holding it. So that disincentivizes people from holding a lot of it, right? It's the opposite of a transaction fee, right? Which is like if you're using a Visa, you're being charged a fee. Well, that tells people not to spend it, to actually hoard it. And we don't want people to hoard it. Like you don't want to hoard blood in a part of your body. That'd be a bad idea, right? You want it to keep moving. So if you want to hoard it, well, fine. It actually starts to decay as you hold it. So the idea that you can program this stuff into money is really powerful. And that's part of why we've gone into digital systems, because you can actually create contracts, right? You can actually transparently say, this is how this money is going to work. Right, and we don't control it. It's created by a public contract that people can use themselves and design their own systems around. So I think that's one of the powerful concepts around public infrastructure around this. So instead of a bank or some government deciding how money is, well, actually it can suit the purpose. Right, people can create their own local monetary systems with rules like demurrage that suit their particular needs. Yeah.
So some of the challenges that we face in the field when we are introducing this concept is that not everyone will understand the concept like in the first trial. So how we handle that, we have to make several follow-ups and frequent visits, and also send our field officers to do retrainings, to have things like magnet theaters whereby we have skits and just involve these people in what it actually entails. Yeah. So another challenge that we face, Sarafu, we mainly measure on the marginalized communities, the slums. So most people in these areas are illiterate. So sometimes we also find it hard. Like some people would not even know how to use their phones to transact in Sarafu. And like I said, we use USSD codes to access our services. So when we find people like the elderly people, then it gets hard to even transact a simple transaction in Sarafu. Another challenge that we face is most of these slums are donor-minded. People staying there are donor-minded. So Sarafu is a long-term thing. Like it has to grow. Like for an individual, you have to create a network where you can easily trade. As you sell to the users, you also receive. Yeah, you can get a product and you can also offer a product. So you have to create like a network. So it's long term, but because most of these communities are donor minded, then it gets hard to like make them understand how this concept works. Yeah.
The blockchain, essentially, it's a distributed ledger. So I mean, various distributed ledger systems in the world, like even the SWIFT network to some degree, which is like the big banking systems, they use a distributed ledger. The sort of issue with that is that who gets to be on that ledger, right? And who gets to print money. So there's sort of a cartel, if you will, of banks saying, we're the ones who get to make credit, right? As if you're on our ledger system, we'll certify you and you can make credit like us too, right? So the thing is, well, how does a community group over here in a village get to create their own currency? And so there needs to be more public ledger systems, right? I mean, printing money on paper is what we've done for like 10 years or so, and it's expensive. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort to distribute it and things like this. So digital systems are really easy if there's infrastructure. So where is that infrastructure? Who owns that infrastructure is a really key thing. And ideally, we don't really want anyone to own it. We want it to be as decentralized as possible. And so the whole idea of blockchain is to say, can we have decentralized ledger systems, right? So like the Red Cross over here can maintain a node that is providing that infrastructure, and this university can provide a node. So right now we're using one that's built, it started with Max Planck Digital Library, and they basically said, well, let's create a digital ledger system between universities. And that's been open to us to just use freely. And so I really love, like the smaller the chain, the smaller the ledger system, you can have. The movement right now is moving towards like, even like this area of Kenya would have its own, and then they can communicate with each other. So it's kind of like, and they're providing this role of trusted ledger, right? Once I put some data into that, can it ever be replaced or edited or deleted? If that's the case, then how can you really trust that ledger? Right? If Bob can come in and change some numbers on it, then you're sort of in trouble, right? So you need to you're building up trusted systems, and you're trying to decentralize those systems at the same time. So in a way, blockchain is just, it's like, if you think about it like a public library, right? It's the ability for everyone to create contracts, right? To actually put onto that like a type of currency they want to use, for people to hold accounts on it at the same time, right? So can this woman and that woman and this community actually keep their accounts and be sure that they're going to be around the next year? And so all of that's just, like ledger systems in a way are the oldest thing we have in human written history, actually. The oldest writing we ever have is ledgers, right? We can find, little tallies done by, early men, to keep track of things. Right, so like those tools and they're sort of part of humanity, and so I see some of this like public ledger systems as just evolving our culture, evolving our society to be more decentralized, to be like the mycorrhizal fungi, to be connected systems.
The media, when they came, they were asking why these people are using their own money. I talked to them, I explained to them. But they did not understand, because the Kenya policemen wanted what? They wanted money from me so that they can go without knowing how this money, we are using it, and then we stop using this money, which I insisted that I know the concept of money I've been taught. If you want to arrest me, let's go. And then it was the deal after 2 minutes with the Land Rovers and what we were put in jail. I told Mr. Will you are going to assist us. Now I'm jail, just fly out. But he said, no, you can't be jailed when I'm out. I'm going to be with you. That was 2013. After coming out of jail, though they fought, we gave what, how is it called, a bond. We were out of jail. After training them, we called Mr. Tobiko that now you know what is happening. We are using our own goods and services. Your child there is going to school. This is not a governmental money. If you've learned about money, this is our own community money.
I think governments nowadays, I think we, like in terms of them understanding what is going on, the fact is that they don't really understand how their own banking system works in a way, and the idea that they're in the whole currencies of Kenya and most of these countries were basically brought here by the British. They're British, imperialist systems to get labor and extract wealth out of the land, right? So they created the hut tax in Kenya, right? They started charging everyone who had a house in Kenya a tax in British money, essentially, or rupees at the time, and they didn't have those, and so they would end up in jail or conscripted into labor, right? So that was a way of bringing in the workforce, right? And so it was extremely coercive and very imperialistic, and then when they finally were sort of kicked out or left, the Kenyan government just took over the exact same system, right? And so it's really confusing, like the concept of like sovereignty. There's 42 tribes across Kenya. Are they, who's sovereign? Right, and so like they're sort of they got stuck into this matrix of thinking that money was a way to constrict people and get them into doing labor for you, right? And so, anyways, I feel like when the central bank found out about what we were doing, they found out in a way where the local media was also saying that there was some kind of terrorism going on, and it was like connected with Al-Shabaab and this sort of stuff. So it really erupted into this thing where no one kind of understood what was going on, and it took us, many months of, we were in jail and we had to go to court cases. We did a petition, and eventually the director of public prosecutions took the case away and said there's no law being broken. We can't find a law that this breaks, even though they tried very, very hard to find some law being broken, for a woman trading her tomatoes for school fees. They were pulling their hair out. How do we put these people in jail for trading tomatoes for school fees? And in the end, they couldn't find one. And they've henceforth tried to create some laws that would prevent it. But the problem is, if you stop people from doing that, you're also going to stop a huge part of the banking sector at the same time, because they're the worst, right? Doing the same kinds of things. So it's something that I think most governments wouldn't like people to even talk about, honestly. It's, and so this is an interesting, thing, because these days now we work a lot more with the Red Cross and humanitarian partners like World Food Program and UNICEF and GIZ and some of these big humanitarian NGOs, and so they're coming now to the government and saying, well, start accepting these types of things. Like, why shouldn't we empower this village to create their own credit system? Why should we be injecting cash to help as an aid modality when they can make their own cash? Why on earth should we inject euros into a country? How does that empower anyone? Why shouldn't they be able to create their own credit systems? And so that discussion is starting, and I think it's, when we started it, we were such a tiny little organization, they could kind of squash us, quite easily. And now it's getting to the point where enough people are saying, oh wait, actually we need to be conscious about credit creation. And then something good about the whole cryptocurrency sort of industry has also opened people's eyes up to say, well, if I create a token for my cows, or even, in the blockchain space, it's very much not really backed by anything, but still, who's to say you can't create a ledger however you want to? And who's to say this woman like Emma's Duca, why can't Emma accept whatever she wants for her business, you know?
Now we don't have an app, but we have USSD code that all users can access. So all our services are under the USSD code. So basically a user can just access it through the smartphones or the other normal phones. Yeah.
In Curaçao, they are also basically developing these kind of systems. What is your message for them? Do you have a message for them? Speaking from your experience?
Yeah, I think, you know, small is beautiful, you know, and like the impacts themselves should be driving the developments rather than coming at it from a rent-seeking space. So in other words, like if there's really good stuff happening, like markets are forming, people are getting more educated, there's a lot of value in that, and that value is worth a lot. You know, rather than coming in there and saying, let's build a bunch of tools to seek rent from people, right? And that eventually they'll be very valuable and we'll be able to charge lots of rent, right? Because that's a lot of it. Oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
It's okay. A lot of these tech innovations, like, they come at it from that perspective. They're not really starting with communities and impacts. They're starting with, how do we get everyone to use something that we're going to make money off of later, right? So it's all free when it starts, and then all of a sudden your charges go up 10x, you know, things like that. So there's so much of that in the tech space. So, you know, start from the community base, you know, make sure that the impacts are what's actually driving it and not profit motive, you know, and cheap is good, you know, like being able to allow, like if you're doing a blockchain, let the nodes be run by local organizations or local universities. They actually don't really have to cost anything. You know, so proof of authority, for instance, proof like democratically chosen nodes, they work perfectly fine. There's no reason for proof of work at all. And if anything, move towards proof of impact, right? The impact, you know, verified impact claims are what actually drives the motive to run this blockchain and keep it active. That's perfectly valid. There's so many organizations out there that will run a computer to help these systems thrive without it being a proof of work, you know, and because that just, it creates environmental overload, you know, it creates all these sort of problems with people now having to run 10,000 nodes, but they don't need 10,000 nodes. Curaçao probably needs 5. That's it. The whole country can run on very tiny little blockchains, you know. There's no reason for this type of profit motive and things like that, but yeah. Happy to talk more. Yeah, I go run and jump on this wall there.
Hello.
Yeah, you could pretend like you're gonna go out the door and then I'll hang out with you.
So.
Entitled Dancing Seasons. Yes, dancing seasons. So sit back, relax, watch and enjoy. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wageni nini baya, wageni nini baya, mbona wakasirika, mbona wakasirika, tuwashikie kichwa, tuwashikie bega, tuwashikie kiuno, muwe na furaha. Wageni nini baya, wageni nini baya, mbona wakasirika, mbona wakasirika, tuwashikie kichwa, tuwashikie bega, tuwashikie tuwashikie kichwa, tuwashikie bega, tuwashikie kiuno, muwe na furaha.
Ha 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 ha.